It's been over 4 years since I first watched this show. It hit hard back then, and it still hits hard now. I guess in some ways that's kind of depressing. A lot has changed since then, both for me and in the world. I've done a lot I really wouldn't have expected. Really, even just having a single friend seemed impossible back then. In that sense, things have gotten better. And yet I still feel just as lost, trapped, and alone. And sometimes it's hard to say why. This video is definitely going to be very informal, but I needed some way to get back in the mindset of making videos, and this seems to be the best way to do so. Welcome to the NHK is an anime about this guy Sato, who is a bit of a loner. Okay, he's way more than just a loner. He's a full-on shut-in. I still remember when I first learned about shut-in culture, and that was very much what drew me into initially watching this show. Sato is completely isolated from all of society, with no dreams, no aspirations, and no goals. The only thing really keeping him going being his insistence that his situation is because of a government conspiracy. The NHK, a force that is keeping him weak and pathetic, for some reason. The whole thing is really just an excuse for Sato to keep doing what he's doing, and by that I mean nothing. He does nothing for most of the day, and thinks about nothing for the rest. We see that when push comes to shove, he can go outside. But the second he opens the door, all bets are off. Are those people over there laughing at me? They're talking about me, aren't they? This person was definitely sent by the NHK to keep tabs on me. Sato cannot go a second without being paranoid of the people around him. And any outing to, the outside reinforces his shut-in mindset. I often find myself keeping track of the people in my vicinity. If people are laughing, my automatic assumption is that it's directed towards me, even though there's no logical reason why that would be the case. It's a defense mechanism on crack, and it only serves to fuel my anxieties. Usually, the only time Sato will willingly go outside is when it's late at night and no one's out, heading to his usual spot at the local park. The spot ends up becoming the place where Sato starts a contract with this girl named Misaki. Misaki, upon introduction, seems like a manic pixie dream girl, but as the series continues, you start to see that she's much more so just the manic part. She can't save Sato, and she wouldn't do so anyways. She wants to be needed, she wants to be the savior, but all of that ends if the patient no longer needs saving. Ironically, Sato seems to have to dig his ass out of depression by his own means. That desire to be needed, it's something we all have, and when it isn't fulfilled, life seems so meaningless. We as humans are social creatures, and we evolved so because there's a greater chance of survival in the group, and that survival is increased when group members can depend on each other. That's why there's a desire to be needed. But if you're not contributing to that group, then you aren't needed. Everyone else could live on just fine without you. If no one needs me, then I am nothing, and if I am nothing, then it wouldn't matter if I... There's an episode where Sato, in a pretty humorous way, is roped into a suicide pact. He doesn't even realize what it is, thinking the whole thing would be a nice vacation or something. By the end of it, though, he sees what little value his own life brings. Every day is the same, nothing gets better, and eventually, the little money he gets from his parents will run out. He can't keep living like this, or rather, this is no way to live. Sato genuinely tries taking his life here, even after everyone else is talked out of it. But regular people don't get such dramatic conclusions. For better or for worse, or for nothing at all, Sato survives, much to his disappointment. Misaki actually begs for him to live here. She needs him because, again, without him, no one needs her. The cruel reality of Sato's situation is that it wouldn't actually take much for his life to get better. There's an episode where he meets a fellow NEET, Yuichi, who is even worse than he is. Yuichi is entirely dependent on his sister for survival, seemingly doing nothing but gaming, and never leaving his room. A detail about this interaction between the two NEETs that is so important is that Yuichi knows what he has to do to get better. He's read self-help books and understands why he's in the predicament he's in. He's completely aware of how to improve, and yet simply by living this way for so long, even that knowledge cannot bring him out of his cage. It's like having every puzzle piece, laying them out exactly as they should be, and still getting the wrong picture, over and over again. After a certain while, the knowledge from your own lived experience of perpetual mundanity and sadness trumps any other piece of information. You know you're going to rot in bed. You know you're going to be uncomfortable if you go outside. You know you only feel anything from drugs or masturbation, and you know none of your goals are achievable because, well, I'm looking around here and none of them have come to fruition now, have they? Of course, accomplishing a goal is only possible by working towards it, but even that common sense is trumped by the muscle memory of failing at every possible aspect of your life. You get stuck in the idea that you will always fail, even if you have the common sense to know that that mindset is what's perpetuating your failures. Essentially, you're aware that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but you're also completely blind. It's not all doom and gloom for Yuichi, however. He does end up making it out and getting a job. And it isn't through any self-improvement course or discipline. Rather, he is simply forced to get better after he is left with no source of income or food. Yuichi's lifestyle, his cage, became unsustainable, and thus the cage was broken. He quite literally could not afford to be a NEET any longer, and had to live life on a new path. By the end, Sato also finds reason to live. Well, sort of. Just like how it all started, he enters a contract with Misaki. This time, however, it's an agreement to ensure he doesn't kill himself, stating that if he does, Misaki will do so as well, and vice versa. It's an interesting agreement, to say the least, but it does keep both parties in check. This way Misaki can feel needed without Sato needing to be completely helpless, and Sato can keep living because another life is affected if he doesn't. But is a life with meaning even necessarily happy? Throughout this story, there really aren't any happy endings, but I wouldn't exactly call them sad either. Sato isn't going to go back to college and make a whole bunch of friends and relive his youth. Misaki isn't going to get the love and affection she never had. Yamazaki isn't going to make it big as a game developer. It's just not how life works. Sometimes a desire is going to fall flat, but maybe not entirely. Sato does end up getting a job. Sure, it's not ideal or prestigious, but it's a lot better than wasting away all the time. At least he can be self-sufficient and not have a panic attack the second he sees grass. Yamazaki is forced back into the country, but at least he gave his passion a shot when he had the chance. And Misaki, through all her efforts, at least made an acquaintance in Sato. And while I would have loved for things to go better for these characters, there is something both solemn and comforting about where they end up in life. It's a very real outcome, without any sort of sugarcoating or dramaticism. And I find a lot of value in that. So many shows, especially anime, focus on escapism. What if you had another chance at life? Or what if you could redo your past? But you can't. You can't just run out into the street and get hit by a truck to be sent into a fantasy world. Though you can certainly do that to escape this one. Don't do that, please. The current situation you're in, no matter how grand or mundane it may be, is your life. And for whatever it's worth, that's just how it is. But while it may not be perfect, it also doesn't need to be completely horrendous. There are some obstacles that are completely unavoidable, and some that with some patience could be eliminated. I can't say I know how to get better, even though I know all the steps. The cruel irony of Sato's situation is not so different from my own, and many others out there. It sounds really stupid, but the truth is that sometimes being sad alone is all we really know. It's what we're used to, and anything beyond that seems like a pipe dream. It's easy to get addicted to that sadness, to get stuck in that headspace, and to get trapped in that lifestyle. Even just the concept of improvement can be nerve-wracking, as there's a level of complacency holding you back. Trying something is a risk and an unknown. Continuing the spiral of mundanity at least has a known outcome. In the most hilarious twist, the mundane and insane becomes reliable, when change feels impossible and pointless. So what was the point of this video? Is there a greater message to be told, or was it all just meaningless? I guess that's up for you to decide, but hopefully someone found something to take away from this. At least for me, this was a way to show my appreciation for a story that really spoke to me all those years ago, and in many ways still speaks to me now. Maybe nothing will change, or maybe things will, but you won't notice. In either case, welcome to the NHK.